The commission docket held a chilling weight I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't the usual lingering haunt. This was different. Multiple disappearances, all tied to an abandoned mine complex in the heart of the northern Hallow Mountains. An echo of those old, unsettling tales whispered around campfire embers. My cabin, nestled deep within the old-growth forests of the Pacific Northwest, felt a world away from the Commission's grim request. Here, the rhythm of packing was a familiar one. Silvered blades found their oiled sheaths, flasks of potent concoctions tucked beside them with the efficiency of long practice. The kerosene lamp cast flickering shadows, reminders of the darkness I so often ventured into. But even its warmth couldn't chase away the unease this job stirred. A worn map of the Olympic Peninsula lay open on my pine workbench, its damp edges testament to the region's ever-present mist. I ran a finger along the rugged spine of the Hallows, tracing the route that led to Emberton, a name barely earning a smudge on the course paper. Ghost towns were a fact of life out here, relics of past fortunes, but the lingering sense of wrongness in the case file made this one different. Emberton lived up to its name, a collection of sagging structures barely clinging to existence. The single tavern offered the barest hint of life, its weak light a beacon in the encroaching twilight. Locals glanced at me as I entered, their eyes reflecting the same shadowed fear I'd read in the innkeeper's brittle-boned stare and the wheezing rasp of his voice. 5 gone in 2 weeks, the innkeeper confirmed. All strong men. Disappeared into Briarwood Mine, they did. The air hung heavy with unspoken anxieties. Briarwood? No creature worth its scales nests in a dead mine, I replied, earning a thin-lipped, humorless smile. There's things moving in the Hallows now, Hunter. Things the old stories didn't name. The morning air clawed at my lungs, each breath a plume of frost in the weak dawn light. The Hallows seemed to exhale Emberton's fear back at me, twisting the mist into spectral figures amongst the gnarled, skeletal trees. Up ahead, Briarwood Mine waited, not a relic, but a festering wound in the mountainside. Even experienced hunters can't shake the primal unease of the unnatural. Briarwood swallowed me into its depths, and for a while, everything was comfortably familiar. Crumbling beams, the bitter tang of old iron, and the echoing dampness. But a shift came, a twist in the tunnels that seemed intentional. The air no longer simply hung cold and still. It pressed against me, heavy with anticipation. My lantern's flame sputtered, the shadows leaping and twisting with malevolent glee. Then, amongst the debris, came the evidence. A sliver of bone, not weathered or dulled, but picked clean. A scrap of faded canvas, far too new for a decades-dead mine. The hairs on the back of my neck stood at attention. This wasn't about unearthing the past. This was about confronting something very much alive, very much hungry, and unlike anything I'd hunted before. The mine tunnels seemed to pulse around me, the rhythm off, the silence broken by an unsettling chorus of skittering echoes. My instincts screamed retreat, but years of experience kept my feet moving forward. Lucas Moore does not turn tail and run, not when lives are on the line. The trail of the unnatural was subtle, yet deliberate. More gnawed bones jutting from rockfalls I was certain hadn't existed on the way in. Scraps of cloth snagged on jagged outcroppings. Blue denim, red flannel, the usual garb of those who vanished. There was a grotesque artistry to it, a hunter's instinct warped into a macabre display. The silence shattered. A shriek pierced the darkness, a sound both familiar and chillingly wrong. It echoed like a bird's cry, yet held a rasping, inhuman edge. Each reverberation sent a fresh spike of adrenaline through me. I extinguished my lantern, plunging myself into deeper darkness. A hunter sometimes needs to be the shadow, not the light. My ears became my eyes. Each rustle, each skittering of unseen claws on stone was a piece of a puzzle. It was moving fast, incredibly fast, and it was circling me. I drew a silver dagger, the familiar weight grounding me in the unnatural blackness. Whatever this creature was, it was toying with its prey, using the mine's maze-like tunnels to its advantage. A flicker of movement caught my eye, a flash of emaciated bone in the distance. It moved with spider-like contortions, long limbs propelling it through a tunnel far too narrow for its size. Instinct surged, demanding I charge, but I fought it down. This wasn't about a straightforward strike. This was about being outsmarted. I backtracked, trusting muscle memory. I'd explored this section thoroughly, knew the twists and turns, the places even a spindly horror wouldn't be able to fit. With luck, I could lure it into a space more favorable to me than this endless labyrinth. The scraping of claws grew louder. The creature was bold, driven by either an arrogance bred of being unchallenged, or a chilling hunger that overrode caution. I reached a wider passage, a spot offering better ground for a fight. There was a clattering sound, pebbles skittering, and then silence. I strained my ears, trying to pinpoint its location. Suddenly, it lunged from above, a skeletal shape dropping from a shadowed crevice. I rolled, the air whooshing past as its needle-like talons narrowly missed me. It landed with a sickening crack, bones shifting, revealing its hideously elongated form and skull-like head. My stomach lurched at the unnerving mimicry of a bird, twisted into this nightmare. It hissed, needle teeth glinting in the faint light from some distant opening. Before I could regain my footing, it attacked again, a blur of bone and hungry intent. I parried its strike with my dagger, sparks flying. The impact sent vibrations through my arm, confirming that this creature was horrifyingly strong for its skeletal appearance. We locked in a desperate dance. It darted with impossible speed, its movements unnervingly disjointed, while I relied on sheer combat experience. A flurry of blows forced it back momentarily, buying me precious seconds to catch my breath. The air tasted of iron, my heartbeat thrumming in my ears. This couldn't become a prolonged fight in this close darkness. I had to force the upper hand, to control the battleground. One chance, that's all I needed. My chest heaved with ragged breaths, each one scraping against lungs scorched by the cold thin air of the mine. The creature, the nesting shrike. My mind whispered a name to fit the horror circled me warily. A thin trail of blood dripped from a shallow cut along my forearm, a reminder of its razor-sharp claws. Every corner, every patch of shadow seemed to promise a surprise attack. I kept my back to a support beam, limiting the creature's approach and buying myself time to formulate a plan. It was fast and impossibly agile, but I was no stranger to fighting things bigger and stronger than myself. The key lay in identifying its weaknesses, in luring it to my ground, not its twisted labyrinth. Emberton was right, I muttered between gritted teeth. The scattered bones and remnants of the missing men took on a sinister new meaning. Not trophies, but tools. Evidence of a nesting instinct. This was its territory, twisted and shaped for its purpose. The shrike hissed, a grating sound that vibrated through bone more than heard by ear. It tilted its head, those unnerving eyes blinking slowly. Was it assessing me? To what end? Hunger or a cruel form of predator's curiosity? I refused to give in to the rising fear. A cold, analytical part of my mind took over, the part honed by years of staring into the abyss of the unnatural. Even amidst the chaos, observations took root. The rasping breath hinting at some respiratory vulnerability, the spindly limbs seeming incredibly powerful, yet potentially brittle with the right force. That's when the plan began to form. I needed light, and lots of it. With a swift movement, I fumbled in my pack, retrieving a vial and a small pouch of treated silver powder. The shrike lunged, sensing the shift in my focus, but I was ready. I hurled the vial against the far wall, shattering it, and flung the powder into the air. The resulting detonation was small, controlled, but a flare of blinding white light filled the chamber. The shrike screeched, not in pain, but in pure disorientation. It clawed blindly at the air, those unnerving eyes wide with shock. I used those precious seconds to dash across the chamber, rummaging through my pack for my coil of pre-treated rope. Its senses returned with horrifying speed. It shrieked again, charging towards the sound of my movement. I pivoted, using the old support beam as a fulcrum, and heaved the rope. It sailed through the air, one end looping around a protruding piece of twisted metal, the other held tight in my hand. The Shrike, driven by blind rage, slammed into the rope with full force. The impact snapped its elongated arm with a sickening crack, sending the creature tumbling. I seized my chance. Lunge, parry, dodge. The familiar rhythm of a battle guided me as I closed the distance, silver dagger raised high. But vulnerability flickered in the creature's eyes, a primal terror replacing its hunger. Survival. It was the one thread we shared, even across the gulf between human and monster. The Shrike lashed out in a final, desperate thrash, its remaining limbs flailing, its shriek echoing through the mine. My dagger found its mark. And then, silence. The echoes of the shriek faded, replaced by the relentless drip of water and my own ragged breaths. The Shrike lay crumpled on the damp mine floor, its twisted form unnaturally still. I approached cautiously, dagger at the ready, but there was no need. Life had bled out of those vacant eyes, leaving behind only the shell of a creature born from shadows. A surge of adrenaline gave way to a dull nausea. My cut throbbed, a sharp reminder of my own vulnerability. Hunters aren't invincible, and there was a grim possibility that next time it might be my bones adorning a monstrous nest. I bandaged the wound, movements fueled more by rote than focus. My mind was buzzing with the fight's aftermath, trying to piece together this new horror. Back at the support beam, where my plan had begun, a flash of metal caught my eye. A makeshift grappling hook, fashioned from a twisted shard of mining equipment and woven with strands of cloth I sickeningly recognized from the victim's descriptions. My hand trembled as I picked it up, the weight of it settling in my stomach. The mines held no more answers, only the grim evidence of the Shrike's hunger. With each step towards the entrance, I mapped out my strategy. I needed a controlled burn to seal off sections of the tunnel complex and reduce the risk of another one. My expertise with alchemical concoctions would need to be pushed to the limit. No room for error. As I stumbled back into the wan daylight, the townsfolk of Emberton hovered on the periphery. There was a flicker of grim satisfaction in their eyes, mixed with a lingering terror. I didn't offer any comforting lies about the threat being vanquished. I couldn't. This was a victory against one creature, not a promise of a world free of them. "Tell anyone who asks," I instructed the innkeeper, my voice rough. "Briarwood Mine is collapsed. Best left to the dead and whatever else lurks down there." I spared a final look at the Hallows, now shadowed by more than just mountain peaks. Back in my cabin, the familiar surroundings offered little solace. Cleaning and resharpening my blades was a practiced ritual, but it did nothing to quiet the disquiet in my soul, the scent of damp iron and old blood clinging to my clothes. That night, as I pored over maps and jotted down fragmented notes on the nesting Shrike, there was no satisfaction, no restful sleep. The image of the creature's nest was seared into my mind, twisted ingenuity born from a darkness I barely understood. It was a reminder that the job of a hunter is never truly done. We stand guard against monsters known and unknown, not for glory, but because the alternative is a world consumed by shadows.